This is Stephen's story with tips on trading once again. I want to share a simple analogy that I'm sure most of you are familiar with already about the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise had a character that was steady, sure of itself, confident, determined, committed. It was about to run a race, but obviously between the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise was going to be the slower one of the two, right? The hare was quick, sharp, fast, very confident of itself. In fact, not just confident, overconfident. The hare absolutely knew without any question he was going to win the race over the tortoise. The fact of the matter was the hare was so overconfident that by the time he got partway through the race, he decided he could take a break, take a nap, slough off a little bit and not stay quite so astute, not stay so committed. Or take a diversion, a sidetrack. This is very, very applicable when I talk about Forex traders, okay? And I'm sharing this because of specific experiences I've been watching among my own students. And I want to do this to help them as well as anyone else who may be benefited by this. I have students who are very sharp. I don't invite anyone aboard my programs unless they're very determined, very committed, very sharp, and highly motivated. The problem we face here is a question of perception of the race. How you perceive the race of getting your education is what will determine whether you finish that race. I've made one other video in the Tips on Trading video series that talked about how important it was to put your funding toward getting your education rather than putting it toward a live account and trading. Education is vital. If you don't have proper education, you will never finish the race. But to get that education, it's going to take time, it's going to take commitment, it's going to take determination, and you can't quit the race or take detours or sidetrack diversions in the middle of it somewhere along the way. Like to start trading a live account with the rest of your money before you have your education because you get overconfident in how much success you're having in the very initial early days of your education. I'm saying this because I have several students who are experiencing this right now. In the first weeks of their educational program, I have some students that are doubling, tripling, quadrupling demo accounts. I have one incredibly unbelievable student who 42 times a $1,000 demo account in 5 weeks. The biggest thinking error that these students are tempted to get involved with, if not fall to, is overconfidence. They're having so much success in a demo account that it ought to really translate to a live trading account as well. And therefore they can take a detour from the race of getting their education and start trading live now. What they don't realize is by taking the rest of their savings or borrowing money on credit cards so they can start out with a larger amount of money to make a larger conglomerate of money, in the end. They start thinking big numbers. They start thinking grandiose thoughts and thinking, wow, if I can do even 10% of what I just did in my demo account, I'm going to be doing fantastic. And they don't realize the pitfalls that are lying in wait for them as a live trader. They don't have sufficient education with only 4 or 5 weeks to understand how to pick the right broker. They don't understand how to make sure they can manage their emotions when they start live trading. And so when they get in there with that overconfidence, they take a detour from education to start live trading, they put way too much money in a live account, and then they experience the pitfalls. They experience the unexpected. They experience the brokers who's taking tactics, trading in a counter position against them in a conflict of interest, and they lose their money. See, this is why I say put your money to education first and guarantee that you're going to finish the race rather than taking a diversion and then taking all the rest of your resources or borrowing resources to live trade before you're prepared and being like the hare who didn't finish the race because he got detoured and the tortoise won. Why did the tortoise win in the Forex race? Because the tortoise finished his education. You see, that tortoise who finished the race of education had all of the knowledge and skills at his fingertips that the hare had almost none of, who detoured early in the race because he was overconfident and made a foolish choice in investing all that he had for education on something he was destined to lose because he was unprepared to win. So I'm advising you here in this Tips on Trading video. There's two things you want to do. If you have to borrow money to get your education, then borrow money to get your education. I had to borrow money in my life to just get my college education. I spent 4 years because I was too idealistic, trying to avoid borrowing money, trying to avoid getting grants just to get an education. I missed 4 years because I was married, raising a family, and I could have had a lot more of the education I wanted. I've had to struggle a lot harder over the years because I didn't get that education. So if you have to borrow money to get education, do it. But don't borrow money to put in a live account to try and raise the money to get your education. Without the experience, you're going to lose that money and be much worse off. And don't spend the money or invest the money in a live trading account with not enough education. Some people want to invest in a small portion of education to see if they can use that to then invest the rest of their money in a live account to raise more money to pay for their education. That's the wrong way to go. Get your education first. Be like the tortoise. Be determined to finish the education race. And if you are absolutely determined and cannot control yourself to invest in that live account sooner rather than later, then at least do it with a very small amount of money. $250. You don't need $25,000. You don't need $2,500. You don't even need $2,000 or $1,500. Never enter more than $1,000, and preferably a lot less than that. One last example I'll share very quickly about a student who listened very carefully. He was also in the same initial 5 weeks of training. But this student got to the end. He had doubled or tripled or quadrupled his account in his demo account, very confident. But then he had a broker that offered him a $25 live account, just to open a live account, just an incentive. He said, what heck, I got nothing to lose. What the heck, I'll take the opportunity. He opened the $25 live account. The broker put the money in, and he traded this with the same trade plan that he had begun with, that he had learned in the demo account, and was doing very well. He traded the Euro USD, nearly doubled his account, got confident. So he went to the Pound USD, a little more volatile currency pair, increased his account even more, and decided to upgrade to the Pound Yen, an extremely volatile currency pair, and then lost his account because the excessive volatility was something he was not prepared for. Well, even though he lost his account, he really didn't lose anything. He gained everything because he mitigated his risk to the minimum. In this case, even used the broker's money he offered him, and in the end learned incredibly valuable lessons that he could not have learned in a demo account, demo trading, but only as a live trader, but had little or no risk at all involved with it. That's the way you want to start out live trading, with little or no risk as much as possible, because you'll learn the same lessons about live trading, but you don't risk a lot of money. And if you really learn how to trade well, you will never have to risk a lot of money. If you really learn how to trade properly, you can take $250 and turn it into $2,500 in a relatively short amount of time, and then you've got something more substantial to work with. But if you make an error, or if you're not prepared yet and you lose it, you've lost only a very little amount of money, and you're still in good shape. No one's devastated. Your wife or your husband's still happy with you. That's Tips on Trading, and this is Stephen's story.